I'd like to thank everybody for coming. This is a regular commission meeting for December the 10th, 2013. The invocation tonight will be by Pastor Nicole Schwartz from the First Methodist Church. And after that, if just please stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Also, if you do have a cell phone, either turn it off or put it on vibrate. Thank you.
Let us pray. Gracious God, slow us down in this season of busyness. Help us to consider the needs of this community. Open our eyes and our hearts to the need that surrounds us. Let us consider every decision in the light of those that it impacts. Guide us, the leaders of this city. Guide our thoughts and our words. Let them be a reflection of your presence in this community. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start off with the consent agenda items. Regular City Commission meeting minutes from Tuesday, November the 26th, 2013, and the 2013 appropriation ordinance number AO 1322 in amount of $7,483,083.99. Commissioners, do any of you have any questions?
I have none.
I have none.
Okay, then I entertain a motion.
I move to approve appropriation ordinance AO 13-22 and regular city commission meeting minutes of Tuesday, November 26, 2013.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Faulkner and seconded by Commissioner Castler to approve the consent agenda as presented. Mayor George.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. Since we have nothing under public hearings, I also want to make everybody aware that this is a public meeting. If you would like to speak to the commission at any time on anything we're discussing, or just you have comments, the only thing we ask is you please step to the podium, name and address. That's all you have to do. Okay, moving on, old business. Ordinance number S1307, the second reading of an ordinance to annex property sold to Sean O'Brien for construction of a concrete plant.
No questions?
Any questions?
I have none.
Okay. I'll move to approve ordinance number S1307 for adoption.
Second.
Motion was made by Mayor George and seconded by Commissioner Faulkner to approve ordinance number S-13-07 for adoption. Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Mayor George.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
New business, discussion and action to appoint two people to the Coffeyville Regional Medical Center Board of Trustees serving to January the 1st, 2018. The applicants are Debbie Carter and Stan Eli.
Mayor and Commissioners, there are 7 members of the hospital board and 2 openings. We have 2 applicants. Both applicants are here tonight and would be glad to answer any questions or make any comments that you have or that they have.
Mayor, Commissioners, my name's Stan Eli, 615 West 3rd. I think you all know that I've been on the Board of Trustees in the past with, I think it was 3 years ago that that finished. And I've also been on the Board of Directors, which finishes this December. We've got a lot going. I think you know, all of you know kind of how things are going out there right now. And I just want to stay involved. And so I'm applying for the Board of Trustees again. It's been 3 years since I've been active there. Thank you.
Anybody any questions for Stan?
No questions.
Okay. Debbie, would you like to step up?
I'm Debbie Carter, 101 North Highland. I've been in Coffeyville all my life, and I own a auto parts business. Done that all my life, it feels like. I've served on numerous boards, and I'm currently on the hospital's foundation board. I'm finishing 6 years on that board, and I'm very interested in the hospital. I think it's vital to the community, and I'd like to offer my business experience to see that that continues.
Debbie, have you ever been on the trustees before?
No.
Okay. Any questions for him? All right. Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate it. I'll entertain a motion, gentlemen.
Well, given Mr. Eli's experience with the hospital and in the interest of continued continuity, I would nominate Mr. Eli for one of the vacant positions, and also given Ms. Carter's experience running a for-profit business, I think that will be a nice touch to bring to a nonprofit organization. So I would nominate Debbie Carter as well.
I'll second it.
Motion was made by Commissioner Faulkner and seconded by Mayor George to appoint Stan Eli and Debbie Carter to new 4-year terms, serving to January 1st, 2018 on the CRMC Board of Trustees. Mayor George,
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Thank you guys for doing it. We know it takes a lot of time out of your life. We appreciate it. Item number 2, Resolution R13-103, a resolution to submit an agreement to the Kansas Department of Transportation for the 8th and Northeast Street Geometric Improvement Project.
Evening, Mayor, Commissioners, season's greetings.
Thank you.
I hope you'll approve this resolution tonight because we've already hired the engineer to do the project for us. This project is estimated to be $421,371 and some change. The project will be at the intersection of 8th Street and Northeast. It will be a reconfiguration of that intersection. Very busy intersection. Old 8th Street going south of Walter Johnson Park has seen a large increase in the volume of traffic due to the Walmart facility, and we think this reconfiguration will help tremendously, especially at fair time. I'd entertain any questions on this.
I noticed we got turn lanes in it, and then there's that one, I guess, split off of 8th that goes back into the highway.
Right. We left the northeast quadrant alone because that is socked full of utilities, and we do not want to have to deal with moving all those. That would be a large expense.
And you said where, the northeast corner?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chief, Celeste, do you know, is there a lot of accidents out that way because of what it is now?
You know, off the top of my head, I don't know what the statistics are, but it's certainly something that we could pretty easily look at.
I have looked into that previously because I wanted to get a traffic light there, and it didn't have the warrant for that.
This will definitely be an improvement.
I'm assuming that there was no turn lane on 8th westbound going onto the highway going north because of the hotel property
Well,
Is that
that's some of the
correct?
reason, and also the utility
and the utilities that are there?
problems, yeah. There's everything you can think of right in that area.
Okay. All right. That was the only question I had. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else?
So this is a proposal, or is this a project that's already been slated to
What you're doing tonight is approving the agreement with KDOT to have the project.
okay.
To commence,
I hope to start building it this spring.
And be done by Fair and Rodeo.
Sure.
How is that gonna affect the traffic over there with Third and Northeast and, or I'm sorry, Fourth and Northeast and now Eighth and Northeast? And I mean, it's great, but. man,
Fourth
that's
and
gonna be-
Northeast should be done prior to this being built, we
Okay.
hope.
Semi-traffic shouldn't be hurt too much by this.
No. There'll be a minimal amount of lane.
Any other questions? I'll move to approve Resolution R 13103 for adoption.
Second.
Motion was made by Mayor George and seconded by Commissioner Castler to approve resolution number R-13-103 for adoption. Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Mayor George,
Aye.
Commissioner Castler,
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
aye.
Okay, moving on, Resolution R 13104, a resolution to execute an engineering services agreement with Sega for the air compliance reporting assistance.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners.
Mike?
SIGA Engineering has been providing engineering services to assist staff with both KDHE and the EPA Clean Air Act compliance programs for the utility. SIGA provides 2 environmental engineers to assist staff in evaluating and directing the compliance program for the utility, including review of all quarterly and semi-annual reporting efforts, as well as any new or pending regulation changes. Staff recommends the mayor be authorized to execute a professional services agreement with SIGA Incorporated for the renewal of the air compliance reporting services for the electric utility in a not-to-exceed amount of $6,000. I might add, we've reduced this by 50% the last several years each time, taking more of it on in-house.
And as far as reporting goes, how are we doing?
We're
As
doing
far as
good.
compliance,
We're in compliance.
we are in
Oh,
compliance.
absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
Has Sega in the past made any specific recommendations?
They were initially brought in when we were without a SIMS technician, and we were under consent order from KDHE. Since that time, we brought SIG in, and we started doing more in-house as well. We went through an annual inspection from KDHE and at least one EPA on-site inspection, and they found no findings. We're in compliance.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number R-13-104, resolution to execute an engineering services agreement with Sega for
Second.
adoption.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Faulkner and seconded by Mayor George to approve resolution number R-13-104 for adoption. Commissioner Castler,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Mayor George,
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Aye.
Item 4, Resolution R 13105, a resolution to execute a professional services agreement with Oxner, Hare and Hare for the East Coffeyville redevelopment plan.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. There's a staff report that was included in your packet. This is about a $70,000 contract. It's a not-to-exceed amount. It's for the East Coffeyville redevelopment plan. If that doesn't ring a bell, it's because we had to come up with a name for it. It's the area that was impacted by the flood in 2007. As a result of the flood, we put together a comprehensive plan. In fact, Oxner, Hare and Hare was the firm that worked on that for us. One of the recommendations of that plan that was adopted in 2010 was that we have a redevelopment plan for the area. Right now, we've got infrastructure, water lines, sewer lines, streets, electric, that don't serve anybody. CRNF and CVR don't make a lot of money mowing and maintaining those lots. It's obviously not their primary business. So we worked together with CVRR and CRNF to identify a firm. We went through our typical qualifications-based selection process. The two parties, the city and I'm saying two parties, they're technically three, but the CVR family met, interviewed the consultants, narrowed down the short list, negotiated with Oxnard Hare and Hare. And putting this plan together is about a 5-month process. It's a $70,000 project. The costs are split equally between us and CVR. Adopting this plan, as was indicated both in the resolution and in the staff report, helps to meet several of your goals regarding community development, economic development, removal of the blight, I think is one of the key factors in putting together this plan. Use the procurement process as outlined and approved earlier this year, and would be willing to entertain any questions you would have.
So this is would represent a professional services agreement to develop a plan. And the
Yes.
three entities involved, the city, CRNF, and CVR, have agreed to the company to develop the plan. But my question is, what if one of the parties, after the plan is developed, has a serious disagreement with those kinds of recommendations? Is there any agreement in place amongst the three to resolve those kinds of issues after the plan is presented?
That was a serious consideration that went into selecting this firm and their process to arrive at a plan that both parties can agree to. Ultimately, any plan would have to be adopted and implemented by the city. So it's not that, we sit down with CVR and CRNF and we have a vote and the simple majority wins, because obviously we'd run a good risk of losing each one of those votes. But it's important through the process that Oxnard Hare and Hare build some agreement. There are only so many things that can happen on those pieces of ground. It probably makes sense for there to be some industrial development in the area around CVR and CRNF. Probably makes sense for there to be some commercial or office retail development along 11th Street. At least have the zoning for it. I don't think they would oppose that. They did put some restrictive covenants on some pieces, saying that residential couldn't go back there. And that's one piece that may be open for debate, because it's possible that the planners could come back and say, we think this area, the further west you go might be suitable for housing. I don't know. That's about the only sticking point I can think of. Maybe how far south the industrial piece should go, or how far west it should go. I don't think there'll be a lot of argument over how far north any commercial would go. There's also with a buffer space in the middle, there could be some room for disagreement on what should be there, whether or not it should be more of an active use or a passive use. But that's Oxnard Hare and Hare's job, to try and work out a plan that works for everybody and that we can all walk away from the table, knowing that we've got a good plan that we can implement.
Do you foresee, and I know I'm asking you to look in your crystal ball, do you foresee the possibility of any residential development taking place out there? We realize there was damage, and we have restrictions and EPA restrictions, et cetera, as a result of the flood, but there is a historical precedent, and that is when Sherwin-Williams replaced the top so many inches of topsoil throughout the Edgewood area. Could that, at some point in the future, be a possibility?
I can see a potential for some residential going back in over there. Not the whole area, but I could certainly see, along 11th Street, you could have some apartments next to some retail, or some retail on the lower floors and apartments above. Realistically, the further north you get, would anyone really want to build residential up there? Probably not. It's going to be part of the team with Oxnard Hare and Hare. It's Oxnard Hare and Hare, but they've also got Trans Systems to do the engineering, and they've got Canyon Research Southwest to do the economic piece of this. One of the important aspects of it is that it doesn't work if it doesn't make sense economically. And so that's a big piece of the foundation of their plan, is what makes sense. We'd all love to see 11th Street be retail from one end to the other and have but if it's not economically feasible and we can't absorb that much retail into our community, it wouldn't make any sense.
What's the east boundary? What is gonna, Walnut, Patterson?
It generally flows along the,
Or, excuse me, west boundary. I'm sorry.
okay. That-
Makes you feel better, doesn't it?
Yeah, because it actually on the east side does go across the 11th Street into some parts of it. The east boundary, it's kind of zigzags, but a lot of it has to do with where we've acquired property to, or where they've acquired property to. The further north you go, it goes further west. The area where they were intending to put a rail yard, for instance, is included in this piece. The whole thing will have public involvement as well, so there's going to be opportunities for the public to come, look, and express their thoughts and ideas regarding how we would redevelop that side. This is a unique opportunity. The flood was tragic, and it had a huge impact on the community, but at the same time, this is a chance to rebuild and have some renewal and growth, and very few communities have a 730-acre area that they're looking to redevelop. So it's a unique opportunity for us.
Well, and I also think it's a unique opportunity for CVR and the city to work together to look toward the future of the city.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the prospects of the plan.
You indicated that they got together and put a short list together. Did the city participate in that discussion?
Yeah, the city and CRNF and CVRR are the ones that developed that short list.
Okay. Who participated in that from the city?
That was myself and Dennis Jacobs.
Okay.
And then when we got down to the part where we were bringing them in for interviews, one of their employees that had participated was unavailable. So I had Dennis not participate in that as well, so that it didn't seem off balance, and actually asked Yvonne Hall from the Chamber of Commerce to sit in on that in lieu of those two folks.
I'll be interested to see what their projections are and what their recommendations are in the market analysis section.
Any other questions?
Did those interviews take place here at City Hall or out at?
They took place here.
Okay.
And that was simply because I was coordinating it, and Oxnard Hare and Hare is familiar with us and have worked
Okay.
with us before.
You indicated public input. How would that, do you have an idea of how that's going to take place?
Probably through more of an informal public hearing, but it won't be like a public hearing here. It'll be maybe at the library or maybe at the Youth Activity Center or something where people can sit down with a set of plans, draw on the plans, make sketches, come up with their ideas and their recommendations and their thoughts on it.
Okay.
Did you participate in when they were doing, Oxnard Hare and Hare did the planning and zoning?
I did.
And then they brought in different business people and you set up times and you came in and actually
And that's
talked to them.
part of it as well, as kind
Yeah.
of a steering group that,
They brought us in and asked us questions and what we thought should go where, and I thought it was real good.
If I recall correctly, we got a copy of what each firm submitted for their qualifications.
That's correct.
And if I remember correctly, there was probably at least 4 or 5. What is it, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. What is it about this particular company that stood out from the rest?
Well, that's a great question, and the answer is just about nothing. It was so close between Oxner Hair and Hair and Hafer Wysocki. They were dead even. Both were great firms with great consultants as part of their team. And we kicked it around and thought about it and slept on it for a few days, both Neil and I. We would have been happy with either firm. Probably what tipped the scale in their favor was that they had done the work here before. They already had some of our data and the mapping and things like that, and their sub-consultants had done work here before as well, just a little bit more familiarity with it. But I would have been absolutely comfortable with the number 2 firm handling the project as well if we hadn't been able to reach an agreement on scope of work and price with these guys. And that's not to take away from them either, because Oxner Hair and Hair is a great firm and they did a great job with us in the past.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay. Marcus? Jim?
I'll move to approve resolution number R-13-105 for adoption.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Faulkner and seconded by Commissioner Williams to approve resolution number R-13-105 for adoption. Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Mayor George,
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner,
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Next item, discussion and action to set a public hearing for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 2013 budget.
Mayor and Commissioners. When we put together the budget and approved it in August of 2012, we had some items that have come up since then. For budget reasons, we need to go back and amend that 2013 budget. At this point this evening, we just need to set that public hearing. We published in the newspaper on December the 7th, meeting the 10-day requirement required by the state. So we would like to go ahead and move to set the public hearing on December the 19th at 6:30. That is our next regular commission meeting. That is a change in date from what our typical meeting would be because it was scheduled for December 24th, so we have moved that back to the 19th. So that is the date we want to set for the public hearing, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
You'll be more than willing to answer all our questions that night as well, correct?
Sure.
Thank you.
There were 4 funds that we'll be amending. One of them is the general fund. That's not out of the ordinary to amend that fund. One of them is the economic development. We have transferred sales tax money and created that fund in the 2013. So we need to go ahead and set some budget in that fund as well, because when we did that in 2012, we hadn't budgeted to create that fund, so we'll need to do that one. Aquatic Center had some capital expenditures with the purchase of the new frog and things like that for the facility. And the electric debt service fund, as you're aware, we refunded those bonds and hadn't planned on doing that, and so we needed to provide authority for those expenditures with the bond refunding. But I'll go through all that at the next meeting too.
Thank you.
I'll move to set a public hearing for Thursday, December the 19th, 6:30 PM, for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 2013 budget.
Second.
Motion was made by Mayor George and seconded by Commissioner Faulkner to set a public hearing for Thursday, December 19th at 6:30 PM for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 2013 budget. Commissioner Castler,
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Mayor George.
Aye. Okay. I have a couple things here. The first thing I want to do is, I know there needs to be some clarification. Our last meeting, on the purchase of the property out by the Walmart, that was done through the Community Enhancement Foundation, which is, we as the city commission set on this foundation. And the money that we used was the money that we received from selling the property to the Holiday Inn. And we took that money to purchase these other properties to keep rolling this money over and be able to keep using it for economic development in the city. Because I know there were some questions in the community about that. The other thing I'd like to say is I would really like to say thank you to the city crews who got out during this snow time. They did an excellent job. Most of the streets were dry later today because they got out and got busy, and I know they spent a lot of overtime. And you know, Chuck, tell them thank you. Gary, you know, I think they did an excellent job. Excellent job. Then the other thing we need to discuss tonight, which wasn't on the agenda, we had a contract presented to the city, and this is just for discussion, on one of the properties, and you've got a copy of it there in front of you, each one of you. And this is at the property at 1202 West 6th. And we have the listing broker here. Barb, do you want to say anything?
I presented that offer to Mr. Shively, and I believe that's in his best interest if he wants to discuss it.
Okay. You want me to do it, Chuck, or you?
Go ahead.
Okay. Basically, what they're asking for is for the city to carry the property for a period of 3 years. And part of the reason for this is she is just moved here and took a job at the new title company. And she was looking at another piece of property and trying to get a loan, and the lender told her she had to have 2 years employment here before they would give her a loan, from what I understand here. And so she's asking, basically what she's asking for us to do is carry it. If the commission agrees that this is something we want to do, then I think we need to then turn it over to Paul and have Paul go ahead and, she is asking to close this by January the 10th. Any questions anybody wants to bring up? If you remember right, these are the properties here. The last meeting, Chuck brought up, Chuck came to us and told us he was going to start listing them with the different brokers. And this was the money that we received from the flood, part of the $500,000. And we bought this house and we fixed it up and we put money into it. And now it's time to try to sell it.
Do we have, since we would be carrying the paper, if approved, have we received or had a credit check, references done? Has it all been looked at?
Were you all given the cost estimate sheet for the city on that sale?
I'm sorry?
Were you all given the cost estimate?
Barb, you got to come up here so the public can hear you on TV and see you.
Were all of the commissioners given a cost estimate sheet for the expenses they would incur for the sale of that property?
My question is not about the cost estimate. My question is about a credit check for the buyer. Has that been requested, received, and evaluated?
Sir, I'm not an authority that can make a credit check. The person making the loan has to do that.
Have we done that yet?
No, we just got this tonight.
Okay.
Would the commissioners like to see a cost estimate sheet on that sale?
Chuck's got it if you want to see it.
Oh, sure. Again, Paul, what would be necessary for us to get a credit check? I think it would be in the city's best interest to get a credit check completed prior to agreeing to carry the paper.
Yeah, we would just need the buyer's permission, then we would run the report. Maybe ask her for some reference letters.
I think what we're looking for now that David was saying is whether the city commission would even be interested in carrying the note if our
If the credit checks.
credit check and everything turned out okay. The reason you haven't got this estimated closing cost is because it was handed to me right before the meeting, so we haven't had a chance to get copies to you, but that would be something you would definitely receive also before we acted on it. So I guess the real question, do we even proceed, or does the commission not want to be the financing agency for it?
I wouldn't object if favorable credit report is forthcoming. I mean, it's a city property that's being sold. She is caught between a rock and a hard place as far as residency requirements. But if the credit application is favorable, then I would see it would represent probably a lower level of risk for us. And even if she did default, the property's still ours.
Yeah, it's still ours. And it puts it back on the tax rolls.
Puts it
Takes
back on the tax
Takes it
rolls.
off our insurance.
So it's a win-win?
Well, and the other upside is you typically get a higher yield. I see that, at least on this amortization schedule on the back, somebody plugged in a 6% interest rate. So I think you have to delegate a certain amount of authority to Chuck or to Gary to try to deal with this and make sure we're dealing with a reputable buyer and someone who's not gonna go in there and cause damage, or, you know, we can put provisions in the contract about how many occupants she has and pets and damages and things like that. That's fairly standard. There's always risk when you sell on a contract for D like this, but there's some benefit too.
I would be in
I think
favor of Gary being able to go ahead and execute the agreement. If a favorable credit report, favorable credit check was forthcoming, without bringing it back to the commission, because it's a win-win for everybody.
I mean,
Gets it off Chuck's hands.
Yeah.
well, but ultimately, we may become the landlords. If they default on it, we get it back. But,
And they've put down $2,500, so.
yeah, and the estimate of our closing costs is $5,130.
So it would be you said for 3 years?
Yes,
We carry the paper for 3 years, then what, refinance commercially?
yes. It calls for a balloon at the end of 3 years.
Okay.
Okay.
If everybody agrees, we'll just have Gary and Paul, Chuck, work the deal and back to us at the next meeting. If everything's favorable, we can sign it and get it done before the 10th. I think that's what she's asking for.
Thanks.
Agree.
Commissioners' comments, staff, and commission. Commissioners, you want to go first?
I have nothing.
No comments?
Staff.
They don't seem to want to be able to talk tonight, so I am working on a written summary. I've been sending you guys those periodically of what we've discussed in our staff reports or in our staff meetings today. Trying to think, I know that one thing is that's important for the community. I didn't want to go until after the mayor went, because last time I talked, he was going to mention the same thing. So There's a parade Friday. I know the mayor probably would have mentioned that if he had the chance, but there's a parade Friday, or at least it's tentatively scheduled for Friday. They have a tendency sometimes to get pushed back by the weather. So encourage each of you to attend. The city will be in attendance, and we'll have a few floats. We've got electric, the Zenit, police, fire, and City Hall, public services. So hopefully well represented there. We have, staff is working on a request for qualifications for a cost of service study for electric. We anticipate having that published and made public on December 20th. Those would be due back to the city January 17th. And then in the time that it takes us to review those, I think we'd have them ready for the first meeting in February. So I know that's one of the important things we've been working on. We had, off the top of my head, I want to say about an 18% increase in usage in our wireless internet service following our free month. So that marketing piece worked. It's helped to get some people interested and involved. Obviously, the weather's been an issue the last few days. I want to encourage everybody to drive slowly and stop hitting the utility poles. Because we lost a couple of those today. The substation that we're working with CRNF on expanding and making it so that they can handle the expansion that they plan at their facilities. I believe staff said we have a meeting on Monday with them to select a consultant, and we're hoping to have that contract in your packet for the next meeting. For engineering, someone would come in and design those improvements. Gene, what were those, about $3 million? Is that about $3 million project? It's around a $3 million project, and we have to hire somebody to do the design work on it. And those costs, the costs for the substation improvements and the design are paid for by CRNF through our contract with them. But because it's the city's substation, we get to select the engineer, and we're actually working with CRNF on that selection process. I know the fire department's excited because the chief and his folks wrote a grant, and their new bunker gear should be coming in by the end of the month. So that's important. Helps keep them safe, relatively cool when they walk into a burning building. And the rest of it, everything else that we covered, I will get to you in a written report.
I do have one question. What progress has been made on the Airport Advisory Board?
That's a great question. And the answer is we've been working on a lot of other things. I don't know if Chuck has done anything with it. I've done nothing with it, honestly.
Somebody needs to keep watching that particular link in the chain.
Well, and I've worked with municipal airports before and airport advisory boards, and I'm not opposed to having one. What we need to make sure that it doesn't become is a board for pilots to make sure that they get whatever improvements they want. I think that if we put together an airport advisory board, it needs to have people who have nothing to do with aviation who also help manage those functions. Otherwise, it just becomes a vehicle for people with planes to try and make sure that hangar rates are low, and you're spending a lot of money on capital improvements to improve something that they use but few others do. So I think it's important to have industry involved. You know, the folks who maybe have clients come in and use it, but they themselves don't use it. That'd be one piece of advice to.
Okay. So at the simplest level, if runway edge light goes out, whose responsibility is it to say, oh, the light's out, it needs to be replaced?
The public service.
What?
We check those on a regular basis.
We still have public service employees that maintain it. You know, remove the snow, make sure the buildings are maintained. You know, we contract for some of the mowing out there, and we do some. You can do all of those things without an airport advisory board.
Again, look in your crystal ball, is there any possibility downstream, future, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, that we could return to flight service status, flight service station status out there, FSS? And what would it take?
Realistically, I'd say probably not, but
Just thought I'd ask the question. Thank you.
Anybody else? No? And we need to go into executive session for acquisition of real estate and number 2, non-elected personnel. Do we have to do them separately? Both together?
Do them together, just make sure you know, if we're gonna exclude or include personnel, we need to know who that is.
Okay. How long do you think you need, Paul?
This one actually isn't for me. The acquisition part, yeah, that's actually not for me.
Okay.
I think we need about 30 minutes
Okay.
at the most.
We'll take a 5-minute break. So Cindy, what? Need to come back at
7:50.
7:50? Okay.
Motion, who made the motion?
I did.
Who seconded?
Second.
Motion was made by Mayor George and seconded by Commissioner Faulkner to adjourn to executive session for discussion of the acquisition of real property and non-elected personnel to reconvene on or before 7:50 PM. All in favor?
Aye.